This is a podcast all about Bears. You either cheering for this team or just pulling your hair. I like to take a minute, just sit right back and tell you how I became the #1 Bears fan.
That boy is Benny Hunter.
Cake on the mic, cake on the mic, cake on the mic, cake on the mic. People, this the intro. Sacramento, California, born and raised. And Antelope is where I spend most of my days. Talk bad about my team, you must be a clown. This is Keek on the mic, so you know you better bear down. Bear down.
Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Today's going to be a fun one, a fun discussion on today's episode of Keek on the Mic, as the reports out of Chicago is Ryan Poles warned Bears brass not to expect a fast turnaround. This obviously came back going back to when he was in the interview process to hopefully get the Bears GM job. The Bears ended up hiring him as the next Chicago Bears GM. And one thing that we already knew about Ryan Poles was how he had no fear about speaking his mind. He was honest and candid in the interview of his assessment on the Chicago Bears roster, what he wanted to change. And that's something that all Bears fans, including myself, absolutely loved about Ryan Poles. But Bill Polian has something to add. Bill Polian revealed to Adam Jahns of The Athletic just how blunt Poles was with the Bears interview team back in January. This is what Bill Polian had to say. This isn't going to change overnight, by the way, Polian told The Athletic in a phone conversation earlier this month. There is a lot of work to be done here. Coach Nagy made it clear in his departure, and virtually everyone we talked to. This team has, depending on how the quarterback turns out, 6 to 8 players that you can win because of in the National Football League. That's not enough. There's a lot of work to be done, as Ryan Poles pointed out, and it won't happen overnight. This is honestly, to me, a truly refreshing report for so many reasons. One being Ryan Poles was honest in his feelings about the Chicago Bears roster. When you look in the past, most of the time McCaskey's just controlled everything that these GMs would do. And this is truly refreshing that Ryan Poles is able to speak his mind and really give his candid thoughts on the Chicago Bears roster. Also, that George McCaskey and the rest of the team brass kept an open mind and are actually listening to what Ryan Poles has to say. And to me, Ryan Poles being honest and candid with the Chicago Bears is only going to make the Chicago Bears roster a whole lot better. And when you really think about the statement, it won't happen overnight. I truly believe that it's true. As fans, we sit here and we will always remain optimistic, cautiously optimistic that every year will be our year. But when you really sit back and take a second and actually be a realistic fan, the Chicago Bears actually may be a couple of years off, right? Of course, we have Justin Fields. We're optimistic that Justin Fields will take that next step and be that franchise quarterback that we always wanted. But when you look at the Chicago Bears roster last year, they finished 6-11, right? With the second oldest roster in the NFL. To add to that, this roster is overburdened by bloated contracts. So when you look at this football team, not only are they older, but they're also overpaid. And this is what Ryan Poles coming in, this is what he was honest about. This is why he was being so honest with the Chicago Bears, because this roster is older. We still have a lot of good talent, but they're old and overpaid. What Ryan Poles is trying to do, he's trying to come in and make it younger, faster, maybe get rid of some of those big contracts, even though it may hurt at the beginning getting rid of some of these good players that are maybe be older, but they're taking up too much money. And to succeed in the NFL nowadays, you need to bring in new and young talent for maybe that are a little bit cheaper. So when we really are sitting here and taking that realistic view, right, and not just always being optimistic, but just being realistic, this team is definitely probably a couple of years out. And that hurts, that pains me to say that, but I'm just trying to be realistic. When you look at Ryan Poles' situation as well, and the reason why I'm saying he may be a couple of years off of trying to actually fix this roster. Ryan Poles has dealt with only 5 draft picks, no first-round picks. Yes, he can trade capital and gain more, but does he really want to do that? Probably not. Also, we only have $40 million in cap space with 25 in-house free agents. So Ryan Poles was really dealt with a crappy hand in terms of trying to fix what Ryan Pace did, right? Ryan Pace was a guy that offered huge contracts with huge cap hits, and he would move money around all the time, and he left Ryan Poles a very crappy hand, right? So now it's going to be Ryan Poles' job to fix it. And truthfully, when I think about what Ryan Poles is trying to do, yes, he's trying to make the team younger, right? More explosive. We already know that. But I don't think Ryan Poles is trying to fix it all in one offseason. I think he's going to add some guys, of course, with $40 million in cap space. You're going to be able to add some quality guys. They may not be the top free agents, but they're going to be guys that can come in and make this football team more competitive. It's not going to happen overnight, like he said, but eventually he's trying to make this football team where they're competing on a consistent basis, not just one good year where they go 12-4, and then the next couple of years you go 8-8 and 6-11, right? He's trying to create a roster where every single year they're in the playoffs. Every single year they're able to possibly compete for a Super Bowl, right? And that's not going to happen overnight. That's not going to happen in one offseason. That is going to take some time, multiple off seasons. So as a Bears fan, we don't like to hear that. We want our team to win. And maybe they may shock us. Maybe in one offseason, maybe they are like the Cincinnati Bengals, right? Maybe next year they go all the way to the Super Bowl. We don't know. So overall, Bears fans, what Ryan Poles says about the roster is true. If he says that it's old, it's true. If it says that the offensive line is bad, it's true. I trust Ryan Poles and what he's going to do with this football team, and I just, as a fan, have to realize that it could take more than one offseason to fix. But if that means that we are competing every year and we are considered Super Bowl contenders every year at the end of this, I'm willing to sit back and relax and enjoy the ride. Like always, how do you guys feel about the report? Do you think the Bears can compete as soon as next year, or do you think it won't happen overnight and it will, in fact, take a couple of off seasons? Let me know down below in the comment section. But before I let you guys go, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Kick on the Mic with every single Bears fan you know. But other than that, I'll be back for all new Bears podcasts right here on Kick on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I